We are back with another Fight Night event at One Championship, November 3rd, One Fight Night 16 at Lumpinee Stadium. There's been a little bit less hype, I feel like, for this card than some of the other recent ones we've had, probably because they were so close together, those last few events. And there was plenty to get excited about there, and I think there's plenty to get excited about here. Maybe not as big high-profile matchups this time around, but some really good stuff that I think if you're a dedicated One Championship fan, you're going to be well into this. But if you aren't, don't worry. That's what this series is all about, to tell you why you should tune in, which fights to look out for, which fighters have got an interesting story going into this one, all that good stuff. So let's get into the card, working from the bottom all the way to the top, as we always do, starting with the very first fight of the night that takes place in the strawweight division. You've got Jeremy Miado taking on Lito Wang, a clash of Filipino contenders. They, of course, have previously fought. They met each other at 1X last year, where Miado got the win, and Wang suffered an injury that kept him out throughout the majority of 2022 and 2023. He came back just about a month ago now at One Friday Fights 34 and ended his fight with Adrian Mateus in, I think it was 30 seconds, just less than, or just over. Emphatic performance that showed that he has plenty left in the tank. Miado, on the other hand, got the win over Wang, went on to beat Daniel Williams, and then lost to Mansour Malachiev, who, of course, recently had a number one contender fight with Joshua Pasio, the former champion. So nothing to be sniffed at there. And this is an interesting fight, a bit of a what's the word for it? A bit of a crossroads fight, this one, to see which guy is going to stay towards the top of the division. Can Wang kind of erase the last few years of dealing with his injuries and stuff like that by beating Miado and kind of correcting the path that he has been on? Up next, you've got a strawweight kickboxing matchup between Supergirl Jarunsak and Christina Morales. If you haven't watched much of Supergirl, I would highly recommend keeping an eye on her. I believe she's 19, and she just is one of those fighters that you're going to be hearing about if you're a One Championship fan for quite a while. She had a very, very close fight with Stamp Fairtex right at the start of the year. A lot of people thought she won that. I think she probably should have won that. Rebounded with a win over Lara Fernandez, I believe, and so is coming back into this matchup with Morales, which is a fight that has been put together, I believe, 3 times now. So excited to finally see it go down. Moving up the card a little bit, you have got a heavyweight clash in there, which should be fun at the very least. You've got Ayaka Miura returning to the strawweight division, having competed against Danielle Kelly last time out in a submission grappling contest. Then you've got a strawweight kickboxing matchup, Zhang Peimian taking on Rui Botelho. Zhang Peimian is a fighter that anytime he's on a card I'm going to tune in, mostly because of that absolute war he had with Jonathan DeBella last year. That is one of my favourite fights in recent years in One Championship, I think. And because of that, I'm always going to tune in to watch the Fighting Rooster. Unfortunately, I think with this fight, Botelho is on a bit of a losing streak. He's lost his last 4, so this one feels like a bit of a given, to be honest. I'm sure it'll be a great fight whilst it lasts, but I expect Zhang Peimian to come through this fight and win it fairly convincingly. But what a story it would be for Botelho to kind of turn his favour around with a win. Up next, you've got one of the fights that I can't wait for, one of the ones that I think has gone a bit under the radar, that it's even on this card. You've got Sinsa McClinby rematching Liam Nolan in lightweight Muay Thai. They first met last year in July, where Clinby won by a knockout in the second round. He, of course, went on to have those back-to-back fights with Regent Ursel, the first of which was very close, the second of which Ursel got the finish to defend his title. In that time, Nolan has gone away and beaten Eddie Abasolo. These guys are just fun fighters to watch. I think this will be a great striking contest whilst it lasts. Again, a little bit of a crossroads, because if Liam Nolan is able to get the win, then he can kind of go back to the position that he would have been in had he beaten Clinby the last time that they fought, and kind of reverse their favours, if you will. Before we get to the title fights on this card, the final bout we're going to be talking about is in the lightweight MMA division. You've got Khalil Amir taking on Ahmed Mushtaba. Mushtaba, of course, looking to bounce back from his defeat earlier this year to the returning Sage Northcutt at One Fight Night 10. A fight where he didn't really get to showcase a lot of his skills. He looks good in the first 30 seconds, where it looked like he hurt Sage, and then Sage pulled off a heel hook. If you've Seeing my top 10 surprises of the year in one championship, that was one of them. So I don't hold that too much against Mushtaba. I don't think anyone was expecting Sage to pull off that kind of submission, especially so early on in the fight. But yeah, he's back against Halil Amir, who is on a really, really good win streak. He's got back-to-back wins since signing with one championship. He beat Nastyukin and Marisa Bavey, and so I think probably a win here would set him up for a title shot. When that will happen, we don't know, because the current champion, Christian Lee, is inactive, as I'm sure a lot of you will know. Moving on to the co-main and main event of this card. The co-main event, you've got the inaugural welterweight submission grappling world championship on the line when Ty Ruotolo takes on Magomed Abdulkadirov. This has been a long time coming for Ty Ruotolo. He hasn't lost yet in one championship, and some of his wins have been very impressive over the likes of Gary Tonin and Renier de Ridder. I love Ty Ruotolo's attitude and approach to submission grappling. He takes on anybody that they put in front of him. I feel like he probably could have done with a more high-profile matchup for this, and that is not to discredit Abdulkadirov's accomplishments, but Ty Ruotolo has faced better opponents in his previous fights, in my opinion, in one championship. And so when you've got the inaugural title on the line, you want it to feel extra special, and I think that this will be an opportunity for Ty Ruotolo to have that crowning moment that maybe he hasn't had yet. Some of his contests have been very close. I say close. The Renier de Ridder one springs to mind because that could have been obviously a huge coming out moment for him in one championship, and it didn't quite happen. It was just very tense matchup where neither of them really got to show their skills off too much. So I do expect Ty Ruotolo to come through this. To briefly speak about Abdulkadirov, this is his one championship debut, of course. He is a two-time UWW World Grappling World Champion, and he is a European ADCC champ as well. So he's got some accolades, but I just don't think he's on the level of a guy like Ty Ruotolo. Of course, I could be surprised, but I think Ty Ruotolo is one of the best in the world right now, especially because he competes at whatever weight class you want him to. So he will, of course, whoever wins the matchup will become the fourth submission grappling world champion in the promotion, joining, of course, Ty's brother Cade, joining Mikey Musumeci, and joining the recently crowned Danielle Kelly. In the main event, and this is the one. If you're tuning into this card, I've listed here are the reasons why you should tune in early. Some great fights on here, some good matchups. Should be a very fun card. I think particularly some of the striking contests on this card should be a lot of fun. But realistically, these are the two guys you tune in for. Two of my favourite fighters, I think, not just in one championship, but in the world. Who should we start with first? Let's start with Jonathan Haggerty. What a year Haggerty has had. When he made the decision to move up to the bantamweight Muay Thai division as a former flyweight Muay Thai world champion, I was a little bit reserved, let's say, of how he would do. And his debut in the bantamweight division proved that. So then to go straight into a title fight against Nongo Hama, I love Jonathan Haggerty, but I was like, man, that is tough. And he pulls off one of the biggest upsets of the year, one of the biggest shock results in one championship in recent years, if not ever. Nongo was on a dominant reign as champion. I believe it was 9 consecutive wins in a row. And Haggerty stops him in the first round in Lumpinee to become the new one bantamweight Muay Thai world champion. And now, of course, in this main event, he has the chance to make it an even better year for himself by becoming a two-sport world champion. Because there is a belt on the line in this fight, but it isn't the belt that either of these guys hold. It is the vacant one bantamweight kickboxing world champion. Haggerty is the Muay Thai champ, and he is going to be taking on a fighter that, frankly, we don't know how good he will fare in a striking-only rule set. We can guess, but we don't know. We've never seen him fight a striker like Haggerty before. I'm, of course, talking about the MMA bantamweight world champion, Fabricio Andres, Wonderboy himself. I say Wonderboy himself like there isn't another famous Wonderboy in MMA, but you get what I mean. I love watching Fabricio Andres so much. He is one of my favourite strikers to watch in MMA, and I've been really interested to see how he would fare up against the Muay Thai strikers and kickboxers that are on the roster, because his striking looks so good for MMA. But obviously the big question is that because the level of opponent he's going up against, or is he just that good? And we're going to find out at One Fight Night 16 when he fights Jonathan Haggerty, because that's a hell of a test. So, of course, like I said, both of them are world champions, both of them vying to become a two-sport world champion. I think that you would have to give the edge to Haggerty based on his high-level experience alone, the fact that he has competed in striking-only rule sets for his whole career, whilst Andrade, I'm sure he has a ton of striking experience, but he is an MMA fighter, he is a world champion in MMA. But if I was to make a short list of MMA fighters that could probably compete at a high level, or at least to a decent level, in striking-only rule sets, Andrade would be... I mean, I'm going to discount the people who are like kickboxers and stuff that come over, of course. Israel Adesanya, Alex Pereira, those kind of guys. Stamp Fairtex, of course. Those people. But that's cheating. I mean, purely MMA guys. Andrade would be in a top 5 list for sure. So I am excited to see what he can do. And either way that this fight goes, I'm excited. Because we could see Andrade reveal himself to be an elite striker. And an incredible MMA fighter at that. Or we could see Jonathan Haggerty move up to bantamweight this year and become, well, technically last year, but you know what I mean, and become a two-sport world champion. I love both of these fighters. I love watching them. They're incredible to watch, and I think that this main event should be an absolute banger. Those are your reasons for tuning into this card. If you enjoyed this video, please drop it a like. Hit subscribe so you don't miss any of these One Fight Night previews, because I do these for every single card. Let me know what kind of content you want to see from me when we don't have one of these cards to preview, because I do want to put more content on this channel, but it's difficult to know whether we should keep it one championship orientated, what kind of stuff. So let me know, and I'll catch you on the next video. Enjoy the fights.